Hi everyone, we are Aimé and Aldana. The aim of this video is to explain the concept of language, the properties that human language possess, its sources, the different approaches of grammar, and finally, the way in which language and thought are closely related. To start with, we make ourselves a series of questions. What is a language? What makes a language a language? How does our language come from? In what ways is it different from animal communication? Which are the different grammar approaches? Is our language connected to our thoughts? After an extensive reading, we conclude that language is the capacity that human beings have to express ideas, feelings, and emotions. This is produced by voluntary speech sounds or gestures in sign language. Now, what is particular of human language is its properties. Firstly, we consider productivity to be one of the most relevant aspects. The reason behind this assumption is that productivity is what allows us to create new words. As our system is open, we are able to create an infinite number of messages. It is noteworthy to point out that productivity plays an important role in the evolution of language, since we keep on creating words with an eye to deliver different messages. Inclusive language is one example out of many of productivity. Displacement is another crucial feature of human language. This ability helps people to express an event which happened at some point in the past, or that it's happening now, or another one which may happen in the near future. In that way, it is possible to retell a story going backward or explain a plan that is going to take place in the future. Duality refers to the different sounds that are combined to create words or phrases. As the name itself suggests, duality involves two levels of language, the primary level consisting of units and the secondary level consisting of elements. When we talk about elements, we refer to items in isolation, such as consonants or vowels, which do not have meanings on their own. However, by combining these elements, we create units. Not only does the element change in each unit, but also their meanings. Why are these properties important? Taking into consideration the properties of human language that we mentioned before, it is possible to observe the reason why they are crucial to state the difference between animal communication and human language. Let's move on into human language and animal communication. The similarity between them is that both are composed by signs. This means forms with meaning. But there are 5 key differences among them. Firstly, the signs of animal systems are inborn, whereas human language, the words themselves, are acquired culturally. Secondly, animal communication is a set of responses to stimuli. However, human language is not limited to stimuli, since a myriad of messages can be delivered for every situation. Thirdly, in animal communication, each sign has one and only function. In other words, each meaning can be expressed only in one way. However, signs in human language have multiple functions. One meaning can be expressed in many ways. Fourthly, animals have a closed inventory of signs. Only a few number of messages can be sent. Regarding human language, it possesses an open system, which allows an unlimited number of messages to be constructed. Last but not least, animal communication evolves at the speed of genetic evolution. Actually, its change is extremely slow. Human language changes rapidly as a cultural phenomenon. Now, the question is, where does human language come from? We cannot provide you with the right answer yet. There are several sources of language proposed by different linguists: the divine source, the natural sound source, the social interaction source, the physical adaptation source, the tool-making source, and the genetic source. In this video, we are going to develop only the genetic source. This source is closely connected to the innateness hypothesis, since that source claims that human offspring are born with a special capacity for language. In other words, this faculty is innate. The development of language acquisition is automatic and varies from one child to another. However, the knowledge of a language is acquired at birth. As regards the innateness hypothesis, there is still a blank space about the factor which makes this acquisition possible.
In this second part of the video, we are going to overview the different approaches of grammar, which are descriptive grammar, prescriptive grammar, and teaching grammar. In this section, we can say that the term grammar is divided in two different senses. On the one hand, grammar is explicit theory constructed by the linguist in which describes the speaker's competence. On the other hand, grammar is the speaker's competence itself. Now, let's have a look at the different approaches of grammar. First, we have the descriptive grammars group. For this group, grammar is the knowledge speakers have about the units and rules of their language, such as phonology, morphology, syntax, and semantics. It explains how it's possible for someone to speak and understand and make judgments about word-formedness. It also tells what someone knows about the sounds, words, phrases, and sentences of their language. Second, the type of grammarians we're speaking in this part are the ones whose main objective is not to describe the rules people know, but to tell them what rules they should follow. They don't share the same view with the rest of grammarians, which is all grammars are equal. In other words, they believe that some versions of a language are better than the others and that there exist certain correct forms that educated people should follow in speaking and writing. This type of grammar strongly believes that language change is corruption. Third, teaching grammar is the grammar used to learn another language or dialect. This type of grammar gives the words and their pronunciations and states explicitly the rules of a language intended to learn. Comparing the language of a target language can be helpful for people who do not speak the standard or prestige dialect, but it finds it advantageous to do it because of social or economical reasons. Then, let's continue with the next two concepts, which are language and thought. How language relates to thought is still one of the many open questions for linguists. Naturally, it is not odd to imagine that language, which is powerful and fundamental to human nature, can be influenced by how the world around us is perceived. One of the strongest hypotheses related to language and thought is the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which states that our linguistic system shapes our ideas. This hypothesis sees language as a program and guide for the individual's mental activity, for his analysis of impressions, and for his synthesis of his mental stock in trade. This hypothesis leads us to the concepts of linguistic determinism and linguistic relativism. The first one states that the language we speak determines how we perceive and think about the world. This means that language functions as a filter on reality. The second concept holds that different languages encode different categories, and that the speakers of different languages therefore think about the world in different ways. It is certain that languages show linguistic distinctions in their lexicons and grammar. This doesn't mean that people's thoughts and perceptions are determined by the words and structures of the language they speak. If language determined our thoughts, there would be no place for translations, as it would be impossible for speakers to think about a concept for which their language had no specific word. Then, there are some languages which differ in their color words, but speakers can still perceive colors that are not named in their language. An example of this would be the language spoken in New Guinea, Grand Baludani, which has two color words, black and white. However, in some experimental studies, speakers have shown recognition of the color red because of its relation with the fire engine red. So, this means that the perception of color is determined by the structure of the human eye and not the structure of language.
In a nutshell, we have dealt with the following topics: productivity, displacement, duality, animal communication and human language, the different sources of language, the approaches of grammar, and language and thoughts. We hope that you can find this video fruitful and that you are able to get every concept that we have mentioned.